think technology can address some of the problems we come across in the world, create a more efficient way of doing things, and also a safer way. I think robots play a big part in that.
So we have these blocks. Where would I go if I want to tell Root to draw? Shavana, do you remember?
Oh yeah, I think it's in commands.
Exactly.
Humans are innately curious and they want to figure out how the world works around them or how to solve a problem. I think robots are on that continuum of innovation.
There are just so many different forms and shapes that robots can take. They can help in almost any industry.
So the AD Makepeace company was started in the mid-1800s. It quickly became the largest cranberry company in the world and was still the largest cranberry company in the world today.
We make parts for medical, aerospace, military, automotive. The previous process that we had, it was like being glued to that machine for 8 hours to make a certain amount of parts.
I'll eat these all day long.
Normally we'd have to walk out there, grab a square foot of vine, count your blossoms, kind of get an idea of what your crop is going to be. To have the drones be able to do that, that's all automatic. Being able to look at damaged spots, being able to watch temperatures, being able to watch moisture, all those things will make it easier to get your job done.
With the robotic machine, it gives me that time back to do something that's more productive for me or more productive for the company.
A robot is an extension of human capability, whether it's extending the capability to be more efficient, to measure things in more precise manners, or extending the capability to explore the world.
All right, engaging in 3, 2, 1.
You will see everything from drones to self-driving vehicles, walking robots, and we're excited that it's being developed here in Massachusetts. Massachusetts is an ideal location for a robotics company to get established and succeed.
Because we have such a diverse group of people, we're able to think in different ways and tackle challenges.
We have the breadth of talent. We have the investor community. There are manufacturers here that understand the hardware.
We have the facilities to design it, fabricate it, and then take it out in the field and use it in our operations.
All of that supporting infrastructure is here, as well as a very open environment for the technology.
They know drones, we know cranberries. It's trying to get those two informations together to figure out what is the best.
And it's humans working side by side with robotics.
It's very exciting. So it feels like the future.
And it's all here in Massachusetts. So I think as you've seen, Massachusetts is truly a global leader when it comes to robotics. There are so many opportunities in the field, and we need a lot of talented students to become our next generation of robotics experts to drive the research and innovation. So I'd like today to introduce you to Colin Angle. Colin is the CEO and founder of iRobot. And I used to work at iRobot a number of years ago, so I know a lot about it, but I thought it would be really interesting to have a Boston public school system person to come and interview Colin and really kind of understand and ask questions that a student might be really interested in. We're also going to open it up to the audience. So if you want to ask a question, if you look on the right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see a questions tab. Just click on there. You can type in your questions. If we have time, we'll get to some of those. If we don't have time, we'll collect those and we'll post the answers later on. So to introduce our interviewee of the day, it's Jeralmi Canela, and he is a student at the Boston Public Schools. Jeralmi, take it away.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeralmi. I'm 16 years old, and I'm a student at Dearborn STEM Academy. I love robotics and science. Those two have been my two main interests since I was younger. I dream of pursuing a career in robotics and science. I'm very passionate about robotics. I remember when I was younger, I used to take apart toys and try and rebuild them back together. At the end of the day, they'd always end up kind of messed up. But let's get to know more of our guest right here, Colin. How you doing, Colin?
Good, thank you. Great to be here.
So Colin, how did you decide to get into robotics, and were there any robots from your childhood that really influenced you and any other people?
So when I was growing up, there were robots, but they seemed really inaccessible to me. I wasn't really sure how I might go around building them, but I had this amazing passion for making things work. Put me next to a river, I would dam it, not to stop the river, but so I could divert the water, go over a water wheel, make things turn. Wherever I ended up, I was building, and so that you asked, was there an early robot that influenced me? I think the answer is yes. It was the movie Star Wars, but it wasn't R2D2 or C3PO because I didn't know how to build those. But there was this cool robot. It was about this big. It was called the MSE-6. It was on the Death Star, and well, the Death Star was new, and the rebels were coming in to blow up the Death Star, and this robot showed the stormtroopers how to get to the turbo lasers, and I had like, oh my God, that's useful, and it's simple enough that I could imagine building it because it had a map of its environment and led people to where they needed to go, and I think to me that was awesome. It didn't have arms, it didn't have legs, but it was useful, and I could imagine it being real.
Thank you, Colin. So, where did you go to school, and how did you decide on what to study and major on? Oh wow, look at the.
There's me as a kid working on my astronaut training, and I guess this is a picture of me in my second robot Halloween costume. You can see it's very thoughtfully designed. My first one went down to my ankles, and I realized you couldn't walk with a box around your ankle. So this is a far better design. Where did I go to school? I went to MIT, and really I went there with this passion for building. Every class I looked at, I asked myself, well, what am I going to be able to build as a result of taking this class? What major will let me build the coolest things? And I kind of ended up, you can show the slide of my dorm room, majoring in mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and computer science, kind of all at the same time. I got a degree in electrical engineering, but really I just wanted to know how things worked. This is actually my dorm room at MIT. You can see a bed with dinosaurs on the pillow down in the lower right, but more importantly, I got my oscilloscope, I got my power supply, my components. I was ready to go.
Mhm. Sounds great. So, what was the first robot you built, and how old were you at that time when you built the robot?
Well, it depends what you count as being a robot. I mean, Lego was an important part of my childhood, and I discovered you could fire track from the old Lego railroads effectively with a device. I actually shot it through plywood, and then my parents told me I wasn't supposed to do that anymore. But that's more of a machine than a robot. The idea of coming up with something that could perceive its environment, think about what it was seeing, and then do something intelligent based on what it saw in the environment. That probably took me to MIT before I could build something that fit that definition. Today, with modern tools, Lego Mindstorms and things that didn't exist when I was growing up, you could probably do it earlier. But my first robot played laser tag. So it had
Wow.
ability to go and figure out if where a light was, drive toward it, point a turret at it, and shoot at it with an infrared light. That was probably step one. The first famous robot was Genghis. And I think we have a picture of it. The Genghis was a six-legged walking robot that used model airplane servos as motors, and used 4 different microprocessors to figure out what to do, and it could climb over things.
That looks scary. It looks awesome. Very scary. So now we'd like to learn more about iRobot and how it begun.
Well, starting a company, begins with a mission and a purpose. Why are you doing it? Because if you don't have a real good idea as to why you're about to subject yourself to a lot of uncertainty, a lot of challenge, it's difficult to actually see it through. And for us, when we founded iRobot, we really felt like we'd been promised robots. Right, growing up, we had the movies, we had the TV shows, the Jetsons, the books, but we didn't have robots in our lives. And we were promised robots. So it might not have been the best strategy, but we had technology to make machines smart with some very exciting artificial intelligence technology. And we set out to make the robot industry real. Our first opportunity that we took on was to change the way we explored other planets. Because at the time, NASA was building massive vehicles the size of a Humvee that there didn't even exist a launch vehicle large enough to actually send such a thing to another planet. And one of my co-founders, Rod Brooks, believed that, why should you have to be huge and big and of human level intelligence, which is really hard to survive and do a useful mission? Insects are actually incredibly robust and can explore things very, very well. So maybe we can put an insect brain in a small machine and use it to explore. And so we did that. We built a very small robot, and with a microprocessor probably less powerful than your watch, probably 100 times less powerful than your iWatch if you have one. Miniaturize that walking robot you saw in the prior slide, put it inside a cocoon, and launched it. And we've got a video of that first launch.
Oh, wow.
So this is out at Edwards Air Force Base. And at the lower right-hand side of the screen, you can see it's not going in outer space, but it is flying. It's a micro spacecraft. And it's lousy old video, but you can see the micro spacecraft. It kicks out this carbon fiber cocoon. The robot wakes up, kicks its foot. You'll see the cocoon open. The robot stretches its legs and goes off on a mission. And so this was one of the first things we did at iRobot, and it really sort of shook up the notion that you have to be big and powerful in order to explore. You can be small and agile and do a very good job. And that robot and some of the technology, combined with some other amazing technology being developed at NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, and led to the Sojourner rover being added to the Measure Pathfinder mission. And that robot was sent to Mars, and my name got put on Mars, which is really fun. Wasn't a great business, but it was how we got started, and frankly gave us the courage to do some of the things that we did next. Because if we could come up with an idea like, hey, let's make a small, tiny space exploration robot, well, maybe there's a lot of other things that are possible as well.
Okay. So what were the early days of iRobot like?
They were kind of tough. We didn't have a lot of revenue because we didn't really have any products to sell. We would do research for people. and they would pay us every once in a while. And every month was an adventure. How are we going to make payroll this month? Well, I don't know. Plan A didn't work, Plan B didn't work, but Plan G is looking promising. So maybe we'll make it this month. And we found a way to keep going. And a lot of entrepreneurship is about keeping going, because you can't possibly know all the things you're supposed to know when you start. But if you can keep going, you have a chance to learn them. And over time, we learned about the importance of the business model, the importance of quality and reliability and manufacturing and logistics. And with each day that passed, we became more prepared to ultimately succeed. We had funny hours. We actually started the day kind of late. We had one employee who would come in at 9 o'clock and work to 5. And he had a family, he did that every day. The rest of us would show up around 10 o'clock. Around 5, Joe, the first employee, would leave, and then it was company nap time. We would all take naps on couches. And then around 7, we would wake up again and work until about 3 in the morning, and then go home and repeat. And so it was a lifestyle, but we loved it. We were building robots, and we were committed, and whatever it was, we're gonna figure it out.
Man, that sounds awesome. You guys seem like you guys were very passionate about what you guys are doing. So we know iRobot for like the floor cleaners. What other robots has the company done in the past, way before the vacuum cleaner?
We did a lot of things. In my office, there's sort of pictures of 100 different robots that we built over the years as we were trying to figure out where was the right combination of the robot and the value the robot could create, and how could we build a robot that would create way more value than the cost of the robot. So we built robot toys. We built robots that went down into oil wells. We built robot video games. We built robots for the medical industry. And with each iteration, we got better at, okay, how can we manufacture this robot? What's it going to cost? Who's going to buy it? How much would they be willing to spend to buy it? And can we make money? And over time, we had a couple opportunities that I probably should have worked, but maybe the timing was bad, or maybe they're just waiting for someone else to do them. But when took 12 years before Roomba and our bomb disposal robot, the PackBot, both in the same year, were made real and started iRobot's real growth.
Okay. Oh.
Here you can see a lot of years and a lot of robots, and this is just probably the few that actually were launched and had some real success. So
wow, you made a lot of robots.
A lot of robots, and around 2010, you can see a robot that goes underwater and actually flies underwater, gathering technical information and data.
Wow.
There's a robot to the left of it which cleans out your gutters at home. It's a pretty significant span that we've taken on over the years.
Now that we have like the list of all the robots here, what are like the craziest ideas for robots that you've had?
Well, I really wanted, there was a toy called the Tamagotchi. It was a video game little LCD video game where you would keep a little critter alive by feeding it virtually. And
Oh, I know that game. Yeah.
remember that? So I wanted
Yeah.
to make a robot pet that kind of you'd take care of, and that would, but it would, instead of being virtual, it would be real.
Oh.
And we got pretty far. We made a ball that sort of liked being a ball. You know, you had to roll it around. It was afraid of the dark, so it'd roll away from dark areas. That was pretty neat and wasn't successful, but led to a robot baby doll, which wasn't also ultimately successful. But that's how we learned to make low-cost robots that actually led to Roomba. But I thought that was a pretty crazy idea. I'm waiting for robots that can fold laundry because I hate folding laundry.
Man.
So unfortunately, it's a really hard problem to do at a cost that you or I would be willing to pay and do the job as well as people are actually really good at folding laundry. So it's a hard problem to meet current expectations. Although my laundry was rarely folded in college, so if something could gather up my laundry and just put it in a pile, it'd be probably better than what I did. But those are some of the ideas.
That sounds really cool. What were some of the ideas that you thought would like reach success, but they really didn't?
So I think there's two in particular that are supposed to succeed. That I look back and say, man, if we had done a better job, that could have been it. And the first one is a robot called the Micro Rig. I think we have a picture of it. And it's a robot that will go into an oil well. That's the picture on the right, obviously. And it has tracks. It's basically a brain, these two tracks, and about 30 feet of batteries. And it carries with it equipment into an oil well so that if there's a place where water is entering the oil well and keeping the oil from coming out, it can close that up. And if there's areas that you'd like to open up where there may be more oil, you can go and do more. And this type of device can operate well. An oil well is operating. It's a really good idea and could have a very positive impact on the amount of oil any given oil well can produce. It's a cool idea. We just happened to reach a moment where we needed financial support when the price of oil was very, very low and the oil companies stopped investing. But it's a cool idea and should work. And the robot on the left, at least my left, is a industrial floor cleaning robot. So this is a robot that would clean shopping malls and department stores and airports. And it's cool because it can sweep and then scrub and then polish all in one pass and has lasers and sensors on it to autonomously move around. And that's another idea that I think can be made real with the right energy and team. So
that seems like a very realistic idea.
Yeah, they're both out there. The challenge with the cleaning machine, though, is you don't necessarily want to sell the robot. You want to sell the benefit the robot can deliver if you want to actually make the most money. And we didn't want to get into the floor cleaning business. That was one of our mistakes.
Mm-hmm. So are there any robots that you hope to make someday in the future?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been at this for 30 years, and I feel like we're just about none of the way to achieving the potential that robots will play in our lives. As an example, people are sounds silly, getting older every year, but the percentage of our population that is getting older is much larger than it used to be in comparison to the younger population. And that means that the older population needs to be more independent if they want to maintain their lifestyle, because there's fewer younger people to take care of the older people. And so this is an area where iRobot is focused over time. We can clean your floors, we can wash your floors, we can do things inside the home. But ultimately, I'd love to do something that felt more like Rosie from the Jetsons, that could actually play a pretty active role in helping you maintain your home, keeping your home safe, keeping your home a healthy place to live, and bringing you things. And I would love to build Rosie.
Wow, that sounds like a really ambitious idea. I'm hoping it becomes a reality. That would be super cool. So
Well, we got
what are
time.
some,
We need people like you to come on up and join the mission, because it's going to take 10, 20 years before we can hope to have something like that.
so what are some suggestions that you have for people who want to build robots? For example, like me or many of the people in our audiences.
You know, I think that I would start by ignoring what you think a robot is supposed to be and start with what is the problem you're trying to solve. Because so many people, when they decide, okay, I want to build a robot. Okay, well, it needs to have arms and legs. Well, why? Because it's a robot, it needs arms and legs. Well, why do you want legs? Because there's some situations where legs are absolutely critical, and there's some situations, or many situations, where they're just expensive and hard to build. You know, and so if you don't have to climb stairs, or if you don't have to go walk through the woods, maybe you could use something else other than legs. And so if you start with the problem you're trying to solve, you're going to have a lot better time creating that robot. When we first built the Roomba, in fact, nobody thought it was a robot. We'd ask our customers and say, what is this? So, well, it's an automatic vacuum. And so when we first launched it into the market, we called it an automatic vacuum. It was the Roomba AutoVac. And it didn't say it was a robot anywhere. The press actually called it a robot. And now when we think robot, people do think of Roomba. But that's because sort of Roomba taught us that you don't need arms and legs to be called a robot. And if no one ever called Roomba a robot, they would still be an automatic vacuum, and it would still be, I believe, a great success. And so robotics is a toolkit for solving problems. So figuring out what the problem is and then how to apply that expertise in making motors turn and sensors sense and CPUs compute is a set of tools designed to solve cool problems. And you'll know it's a robot if you want to name it. Otherwise, you build a really cool machine, which is awesome too.
Okay, so we know that iRobot does a lot of stuff with STEM. Could you tell us a little bit more about iRobot education?
Sure. So one of the things that successful companies get to do is help the community and help with issues that may not be immediately applicable to their business. And for us, we chose science, technology, engineering, and math education. Now, honestly, it has a lot to do with our business, because if we can get more people excited about math and science, we're basically training our future workforce. But we also recognize that few things in the world can inspire people to be interested in science and technology and math like robots. It's everyone knows what a robot is. Most 3-year-olds are passionate about dinosaurs, whales, and robots. So we got that going for us. And we just realized that there was nothing else we could do that would be more impactful and a better outreach mission than science, technology, engineering, math education. And so we created an initiative. We actually went and lobbied Congress and had them establish National Robotics Week as a thing so that we can get our other robot company partners and robot clubs and robot interest groups around the country to raise their hand, hold an event, and try to get people to come in. We give tours at iRobot facility for classrooms who are interested in learning more about robots. And we have some actual robots that you can use. We have something called the iRobot Create, which is basically we took a Roomba, we took the cleaning head out, and we have this very, very sturdy, powerful robot that you can turn into a different kind of robot. And then we have this amazing new robot called Root, which is a programming robot, a coding robot. Here's a picture of it. And this is a robot that you can program either using simple block programs or a sophisticated graphical programming language or actual text-based coding. And what's neat about it is you can write a program in blocks and then translate it into graphics and translate it into text as you get to be a better programmer. Write your program, push a button, and have that robot execute your program. And there's versions of this robot that actually climb on whiteboards. They can draw, they can sense different colors, they have buttons. And so you can certainly program a Pac-Man, you can program maze solving routines, you can do competitive centipede-like games with this robot. And if you work through the 3 levels of coding and get to level 3, the text-based coding, well, you can get a job as a software programmer. So we think this is a very ambitious robot. And the coding side, if you're happy with a virtual robot, you don't even need to own that robot. You can go to our website and start coding at no cost. It's all free. You need to buy the robot, but the coding is free. And we think this is really important because, well, for every graduate from college with an IT or software degree, there are 15.5 jobs waiting. And that statistic in my mind is going to get worse, not better. So if we can get more people interested in software and learning how to code, we're going to be doing a great favor. Well, we do ourselves a great favor because we need programmers.
Definitely, I agree with you. So what kind of impact, oh, seems like we got a question from our audience. Where did your robot ideas come from? One of our audience members is asking.
Sure. Well, it actually depends. At iRobot, what we look at as we're focused on helping to maintain the home, we actually have a graph. And on one axis, it's how frequently do you have to do that task? And on the vertical axis, how much do you dislike doing that task? And if you plot all the things that you do during the day, and you can look at the things you have to do frequently and you don't like doing, well, that's a pretty good idea for a robot product. And so that's the iRobot business way. I think that for other kinds of robot companies or other areas, I think it's where do you have passion and understanding and see a need? Now, how can I use my robot toolkit to help solve that problem? And so I helped found a company called Robots in Service of the Environment, which uses that robotic toolkit to solve environmental problems. And the idea for our first RISE robot was actually scuba diving, where we saw this invasive species of lionfish. We came up, my wife and I, and were asked a question by our guide, well, can't you build a robot to help us with this? Because this is a huge problem. And we thought about it and said, well, yeah, let's do it. And so we founded a company. Here's a picture of the, I think it's the second generation prototype. This robot has these two paddles out in front. If you can see the square metal things, it will stun the lionfish, sort of knock it out, and then suck it into the body of the robot and capture it. And so it's a special targeted fishing system.
Man,
So
this sounds really awesome.
Yeah.
I probably want to do this in the future. I'm more interested now from what you're telling me. Another question from our audience is, one sec, is what is the difference between robotics and automation?
So the whole idea of what is a robot, I think, is a great question, because I used to answer a robot is a machine that can perceive its environment, think about what it sees, and then do something physical based on that idea. It seemed like perceive, think, act physically, that's a robot. But there's so many things in the world that fit that definition today that I think it's no longer my definition of what a robot is. I'm not claiming this is the perfect definition, but I think it's closer to say a robot is a machine that you feel should have a name. Because I think there's something embodied about being a robot that is encapsulated by it deserving to be named, that actually does a better job. So automation is making something automatic so it can complete its job without you having to do it yourself, so that it's an assistive mechanism. And a robot is a machine that you name.
Great explanation. Another question let's go to the last question, actually, since we're running a bit low on time. What kind of impact do you think robots will have in the future? And will they play a bigger role in the future?
Well, as I said before, we're just getting started here. I mean, we've got robot vacuums. That's pretty good. It's way better than it was, 10 years ago.
Long time ago.
But,
yeah.
But we're just scratching at the itch, and we have to really focus, because ultimately, as I mentioned, the world is getting older, and we need help to stay independent as the support structure to help us live out our lives as we grow older diminishes in its capability to provide that help. So robots are going to be, I think they're interesting today. They're going to be central to maintaining our standards of living in another 10 to 20 years.
I 100% agree with you, Colin.
Thank you.
So I guess this is done with the interview.
Yeah, thank you guys. Great questions, Jamali. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Colin. It's been really interesting. Every time I listen, I learn something new, which is exciting. And as part of those STEM robots, I know iRobot's donated some to Mass Robotics, and we're going to be hosting an educator virtual session later this summer, I believe, where we'll have a chance to share some of the learnings that we've had with these robots with teachers and get them interested in potentially using these types of tools. So if you're interested, you can just send an email to info@massrobotics.org, and we'll get that information to you. Also, there was a number of questions we didn't get to, and great questions. So we're gonna probably somehow collect those and hopefully get Colin to answer those and maybe put those up on the website. I hope you enjoyed this session. We're going to be hosting another session next Wednesday at 3 o'clock with another co-founder of iRobot, who's moved on, started her own drone company, and now is an expert with the U.S. Army on robotics. So different view and different types of robots that Helen Grainer can talk about. So hopefully you can all join us then. Again, if you're interested in learning more about robotics, please go to the state of Massachusetts website. It's www.masstech.org/robotics. Thank you everyone for joining us today.
Later.
Yeah.
Later, Colin.
See you.
Nice
Thank
talking
you.
A robot is an extension of human capability.
It feels like the future. It's very exciting.
You will see everything from drones to self-driving vehicles, walking robots, and we're excited that it's being developed here in Massachusetts.
We have the breadth of talent, the investor community.
We have the facilities to design it, fabricate it, test.
It's just a great environment for robotics.